Hi you guys, this is the chapter 5 and 6 test review. The first two exercises are your oral exercises, and you already have the MP3 for both of those as well as the key, so I'll let you do that on your own time. I want to start here with the question personnelle, writing complete answers in French. Numéro 1. Qu'est-ce que vous allez faire ce week-end? Remember that for all of these questions, you want to look for a question word, if there is one. If there isn't one, it's a yes-no answer. But if there is one, you just want to mark what that question word is. In this one, we have the que of qu'est-ce que, which means what. Then you want to count how many verbs you have. This way you can reuse whatever structure, whatever tense is being used in the question. So here in this question, qu'est-ce que vous allez faire ce week-end? You have two verbs, aller and faire. You can tell by the fact that aller is conjugated and faire is in the infinitive that here you're using the futur proche. Okay? I'm going to not give you the answers themselves here because you have the key. I'm just going to try to give you an idea of the direction that you should be going so that you can try your best on your own time. Numéro 2. Quand perdez-vous patience avec les membres de votre famille? Question word first. I do have one. And it's quand, which means when. Then counting the number of verbs here, you only have one, perdre. That's present tense then. Perdre means to lose. À quelle heure prenez-vous le déjeuner? Question word. I have quelle. And as always with quelle, I have to actually identify what it is that I'm kind of referring to. So in here, it's heure, quelle heure. And importantly, we're going to have this preposition here, which is going to be used then in your answer. Next part then is going and counting the number of verbs. You only have one. Prenez, that's prendre. That's also present tense. Le déjeuner is not a verb here, and I know that because I have the article before it. Numéro 4. Quelles sont vos boissons préférées? Question word is quelle, and I'm referring here to boisson. Notice the vos here. That's a possessive adjective. So your possessive adjective will end up changing to mon mame, ton tate, son sase, whatever is going to be lined up with vos here. When you answer for yourself, like you'd answer with je, you could also potentially answer with mes boissons préférées, like that. Or you could redo this sentence and do the je préfère conjugation as your verb, not forgetting the accents going towards each other. And I have present tense here because right here with son, I had present tense here. So you can either use the je préfère or you can use mes boissons préférées sont. Both of those structures are perfectly good, but you get to choose. Numéro 5. Qu'est-ce que vous buvez avec votre petit déjeuner? Question word, I do have one. It is que, which means what. Number of verbs, I only have one. That's present tense. And it's boire, so irregular verb. Okay. Don't forget, once again here, I have a possessive adjective, so my votre would change. The parole section here, describe what the weather is like, must be like given the action taken in the first half of each sentence. So they're giving you a situation. Remember, you have several expressions for weather. Many of them start with il fait, right? Then you have a whole nother section that uses il y a. You have another one with le temps est. Okay? You should also know how to do the seasons. So if you want to say something like, we are in a certain season, you would say nous sommes. And then your four seasons, you have printemps, été, automne, and hiver. Remembering here that when you want to say in spring or during spring, versus, in summer, in the fall, in winter, you have to use a preposition, and the prepositions are a little bit different. For été, it's en été, en automne, en hiver, because all three of these start with vowel or vowel sounds. whereas printemps starts with a consonant, so I have to use O. But you should be able to go between these things, either going from a situation to weather stuff, or a weather description to a season description, or vice versa, a season description to give a weather, or any direction of this. Okay, so just be aware that those are three types of ways that you can do this exercise, depending on the directions of the actual test. The next one is expressions with faire. For each of the following situations, say what the following people probably do using an expression with faire. It's not just faire, but first of all, we need to review faire. Here we go. Hopefully you have this already memorized and you feel very comfortable with it. But faire means to do or to make. The conjugations are je fais, tu fais, il fait, nous faisons, vous faites, ils font. So putting that in first, it's half the battle, and then the other half of the battle is the expressions that can go with that. Remember, we have things like faire la lessive, faire une promenade, faire les courses, faire les devoirs, faire la vaisselle, faire du ski, faire de l'aérobic. So go back and check that vocabulary. Given a situation, you want to pick the right conjugation of faire, as well as then the expression that goes with it. For number one, le chien d'Ariane regarde la porte et la fenêtre. So the dog, Ariane's dog, is looking at the door and the window. À l'extérieur, il, okay, so given the situation of he looks at the window and at the door, then what are they going to do outside? It's probably the dog's suggestion essentially or clue that he wants to go out for a walk. So I'd say the expression with faire, first of all, conjugate faire for il. So I would say ils font. That's half the battle. The second one is the expression for font, and then une promenade for a walk. Okay? So first part of the battle is conjugating faire. Second part of the battle is giving the appropriate expression. Verbe régulier, RE et faire. Okay, so these are all of your RE verbs as well as faire mixed in there. You'll need to know, of course, what these verbs mean and then how to conjugate them. So in terms of what they mean, attendre means to wait for. Descendre means to go down, to go south, or to get off of something. Faire is to do or to make. Perdre is to waste or to lose. And rendre visite à is to visit, but strictly for people. So we want to remember that rendre visite à is not the same as visiter. Visiter gets a place, and rendre visite à gets a person. So review here, we've already done faire as a review, but review on your RE verbs. You take off RE, and you add SS, nothing, ONS, easy, ENT. So if I were to do an example here with vendre, means to sell, I take off RE and I'm left with vend with a D as my root. So I would say vend, 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 vendons, vendez, vende. So you'll notice that in these first three, the D is silent. You have whatever consonant there is silent. And over here, you will hear the consonant. Okay? Remember that ENT is completely silent. Vende. Say the D, but nothing after it. Vende. Okay? So figuring out where to put those and then conjugating appropriately. Exercice C. Yvette and Nicole are visiting Laura at her apartment. Complete their discussion by supplying the most appropriate possessive adjectives, montant, son, etc. So as a reminder, our possessive adjectives, we have a masculine, a feminine, and a plural column. For the idea of it belonging to je or I, you have mon, ma, me. For the idea of tu, you have ton, ta, tes. For the idea of il or elle, you have son, sa, ses. For the owner being nous, we have notre, notre, those are identical, nos. If the owner is vous, the possessive adjective is votre, votre, vos. And for il, elle, plural, the owner, your possessive adjective is leur, leur, leur with an S. So here, this is about who owns it. Okay, this is the owner. That's the thing that's going to be to the left of your blank. Your masculine, feminine, plural situation, that is the possession. Okay, the thing being possessed. And that has a gender and a number. That you're going to find and go to the right of your blank. Don't forget that for these three, ma, ta, and sa, if your possession starts with a vowel, then you need to make the liaison by then using this. So example, let's say that I wanted to do ma amie, my friend, because amie is feminine. My problem here is with the two vowels, so what I'm going to use instead is mon ami, so that I can do the liaison. Even though ami is still feminine, I'm going to use the masculine possessive adjective. So moving over here, as a reminder, what we do here is we go to the right and we go to the left. So Laura says, j'ai une collection de livres de philosophie et de critique littéraire. Yvette says, blank collection est extra. So first of all, after my blank, I'm going to decide if this thing after to the right of it is masculine, feminine, or plural. All IONs are always feminine, so I'm just going to mark that. In my brain, I know that then, because I'm in the feminine singular, I'm going to be in my middle column right here. Okay? Then I have to figure out somewhere to the left who owns the collection. Oftentimes I can go straight to the left and find it within the same series of sentences, but here Yvette is speaking. She's speaking to Laura. Laura had said, I have a collection. So whose collection is it? It's Laura's. Therefore, we're in an informal situation, and Yvette is talking to Laura. So I already know that I'm in my feminine column, and she's talking to Laura, which is the two rows. So therefore, the thing where that is overlapping is ta. Okay, and I just want to check out for any vowel problems. I don't have any with collection, so that's what I'm going to fill in. Okay, so that's what you need to do. You need to essentially figure out what's your column and what is your row, and then fill it in. Exercice D. Monsieur Laurent is on a diet. One evening, he dreams of an ideal meal. Complete the following passage by supplying the appropriate partitive, definite, or indefinite articles. Okay, so your partitive, definite, indefinite articles, that's all of the articles that we have covered here. I'm going to draw an arrow down here for this information. Here we go. We've got these 5 rules. The first one is, do you have an expression of quantity? A word like beaucoup, assez, un peu, un verre, un kilo. All of those expressions of quantity are going to use de or a D apostrophe after them. If you don't have an expression of quantity before the blank, then you want to look for the closest verb to the left. Is it a preference verb? And I'm going to say closest to the left. Okay, preference verbs would be aimer, adorer, détester, and préférer. If you have one of these guys, then you're going to be using le, la, les, or L apostrophe. If you don't have an expression of quantity before the blank, and you also don't have a preference verb before the blank, then you go to number 3, which is asking yourself, do I have ne pas around my verb before the blank? If you do, then you're going to want to go and use de or D apostrophe. If you don't have either 1, 2, or 3, Then you're going to go to deciding if it's countable or not countable. And number 4 and number 5 are pretty much on the same level in terms of priority here. So countable things, those are things that you can count 1, 2, 3, and that in general you don't want to try and separate, like people, dogs, pens, etc. And you're going to use un, une, des here. Versus non-countable things are things that in general you're talking about being as part of the whole, like I'm going to eat some chicken, I'll have some milk, I'll put in some sugar into the recipe. When you're doing that as parts of the whole, then you use du, de la, de l'apostrophe. Okay? These rules, remember, go in order of importance. So if you have an expression of quantity, but you also have a preference verb, the expression of quantity is the more important one. Okay? Similarly, if I had a preference verb, but I had ne pas, my preference verb would be more important than my ne pas. So make sure to just go in order. You have to memorize the order and then also apply them. So I'll do just 1 or 2 examples with you and let you try to do the rest on your own. Je vais préparer le repas idéal. J'aime blank viande. So before the blank, I want to ask myself, number 1, do I have a question? I'm sorry, not a question word. Do I have an expression of quantity before my blank right here? No, I do not. So then I go to number 2, which is, do I have a preference verb immediately to the left or the closest to the left? Yes, I do. This is a preference verb, so I'm going to use le, la, les. Which of those am I going to use considering the fact that viande is a feminine word? I'm going to pick la and watch for vowels. J'aime la viande. I like meat. Je déteste blank salade. Here we go. Before the blank, I'm going to start way back at number 1. Do I have an expression of quantity here? No, I do not. Do I have a preference verb closest to the left? Yes, I do. So I'm using le, la, or les. Which one am I going to use given that salade is plural? I will use les. Okay? All right, exercise E. Here's a list of annoying things that family members have been doing for a long time. Tell them to shape up. Form an imperative phrase to address each problem. Remember, your imperatives are command form. So as a review for that, your command form, also known as the imperative, impératif, you can use 3 different types of subjects. You can either use tu, you can use nous, or you can use vous. All of the other subject pronouns are not able to function with this. You conjugate your verb in present tense. Let's say that I want to tell them to eat something. Manger is a regular ER verb. And let's say I'm going to tell them eat the pie, la tarte. Or the tarte, not a pie specifically. I'll do the same thing for this guy, just for example's sake, and for this one as well. Okay, so I start off with my normal sentence. So here I'm going from them having a situation, if I can scroll up, your little brother is always leaving dirty dishes in the sink. You need to create a sentence, first of all, to tell him what you'd like him to do. What are you going to tell him to do? So you're directly telling your little brother. So you first need to decide, to whom are you speaking? Your little brother, you're going to use tu for. Your grandparents, that's plural, right? They watch too much television, so you'd probably use vous. Your sister, that would be tu. The family, which includes you, you'd probably use nous for that. The baby, you'd use tu. So decide on your subject first. Then conjugate an appropriate verb that makes sense for what you're trying to do. So let's say that the situation given was nobody is eating the dessert after Thanksgiving, and you want to tell them to eat the tart or eat the dessert. So this is the sentence maybe that you come up with, okay? Then from there, once you've gotten your sentence, then you whack, whack, wha-bam. In the case of a tu form of an ER verb, the S that's at the end there will get taken off. And that is tst, ah. So I would then rewrite my sentence as mange la tarte. Eat the tart. For the new form here, I'd go whack, whack, bam. I do not take off the S here because it's not the to form. So I would rewrite, capitalize, oops, wrong color, and say mangeons. Don't forget that little sneaky E in there. That is kind of weird about the new form of manger. Last one, vous mangez la tarte, whack, whack, bam. Don't take off the Z. And I would rewrite as manger la tarte. Okay, so you want to try to use a verb that you know and feel comfortable with and vocabulary that you know and feel comfortable with. Usually the situation that they're giving you in English is going to help you do that. Also remember that you have a couple of irregulars, okay? So avoir, let me move over here. Avoir and être have irregular forms. The tu, the nous, and the vous form are irregular here. So for the tu, we've got et, ayons for nous, ayez for vous. And for être, we have soit, soyons, soyez. That was maybe not the clearest. Let me rewrite that a little bit. Okay, so those are the verbs that are irregular in this tense that you, instead of using the normal conjugations, you completely replace them with these instead. Okay, then the lecture culturelle, of course, which is your reading, and that is the end of the test. Okay, I hope that was helpful for you guys. Don't forget that there is, of course, the key available to you. And if you have any questions, we can discuss them. Thanks, guys. See ya.